Yes, for those of you who are hearing about the podcast for the first time, we started a podcast. I think, as you said, this is the second episode we want to shoot today, and it's called the Archi Spaces podcast. Basically, a space for architects and people in the architectural field to meet and engage and discuss and banter and do everything that pertains to the profession. I know a lot of people have not had an opportunity to speak and raise topics off the cuff because, and by off the cuff I mean outside the official structures of the AK, and that's why we came up with this as a social media channel where we can then do all our activities to do with student commentary, get comments and feedback from members of the chapter, and then discuss issues to do with architecture. We have two guests who joined us today. One is going to talk about the place of AI, and that's artificial intelligence in architecture. And I hope you'll be engaging enough to ask them as many questions as possible about what AI is, what it does, how much it costs, where to get all those questions about AI in architecture. The second guest is going to, demonstrate, I think they've come with, a drone and stuff like that. So we're going to talk about drones in architecture, their usage, pros and cons, costs, all those things.
Regulations.
And regulations. I do know there are regulations which govern how, where, and who can actually fly a drone in Kenya. So I think that being said, I think we'll just move directly and invite our first guest to talk about AI in architecture. Yes, so Bwana Victor,
Yes.
karibu sana. Kindly introduce yourself to the members. These are architects, student architects, graduate architects, what have you. Just introduce yourself and then we'll take it from there.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. My name is Victor Thuku. I am a graduate architect from Jomo Kenyatta University, and I'm currently working at Design Attitude. I'm heading to my second year of experience, so it's
about time.
Yeah. So as you've heard, I'm an artificial intelligence enthusiast, and throughout today's discussion, I'll tell you about my journey and how I got to learn about it and how much I've been following it up and why I even decided to do this in the first place. And it will be an engaging discussion. You'll get to learn about popular resources to follow up on this movement and even engage with some of the people doing work with AI on the internet. Yeah, some popular resources are found quite interesting. Yeah.
Nice.
So, thank you. Maybe first reactions. I know people are scared about AI. When people talk about it replacing the space or the place for an architect, in the process for the built environment design process.
Yeah.
So maybe just talk about, maybe you can give us the basics about what AI is in the first place.
Yeah.
I know people here thinking ChatGPT, and they're asking themselves, ChatGPT itachora nyumba aje? Maybe you can give us the background to what AI is in terms of when you talk about it from the architectural perspective.
Okay. Well, artificial intelligence, AI, this is literally, it's kind of a buzzword because it represents a series of quite a number of technologies within the technology space. Some of them being machine learning, natural language processing, speech recognition, ability for machines to see things, vision. So it's quite, it's like a group word for several technologies going on. And at the moment, there's two categories of artificial intelligence. There's those that are considered narrow intelligence and the ones that are considered general intelligence. By narrow, we're talking about machines that are specific. They only do one task, and that's what they've been coded to do. And so this is the kind of AI that does maybe images.
The kind of friend as we do.
Exactly. We'll be getting into the categories of AI tools within architecture. So at the moment, there's narrow AI that does specific tasks, and then there's the general kind of AI, more that's in the realm of ChatGPT, BARD, Merlin. So From my experience and from what I've been looking at, there's quite a few ways these technologies will revolutionize our architecture space. And
Possibly throw us out of business.
not really, because this is not the first time actually something interesting is happening within architecture. As you've heard, there's an evolution of technology within architecture before AI. We started with hand drafting from the time when people were drawing on floors, 10 people working on one plan, to the advent of computer-aided design. So, and beyond that, there has been even building information modeling. So, where the information of a building is recorded, and not just during design stage, but through the lifetime of the project. So now what artificial intelligence does beyond these three technologies that have revolutionized architecture is the machine now is able to draw conclusions. Artificial intelligence is you're kind of storing human intuition in a machine, like the things that people are able to do, the machine can be able to do and come to conclusions by itself. Well, at the moment, we are not at that level where it's good enough to even replace us. But it's a thought to keep in mind.
You can read somebody's mind. In the sense that if I'm a client and I have ideas on the kind of a project I want to do, it's likely to get to a place where the machine will literally read my mind and consolidate that information into a design.
Exactly. Okay. In fact, one of the ways to look at AI and any other technology per se, we can look at the internet, for instance. Before the internet, you had to go look for books. In my time in the university, lecturers used to tell us to go to the library.
He was my student. I am taking all the credit for the good things. If he's done any bad thing, I don't want to be associated.
Thank you. When you were teaching us, you used to tell us to go to the library, and I used to think, why?
To draw the library.
You can get the books online.
Yeah, you can get the books online. Yeah. So what the internet did, it made information democratic. Like, you didn't have to go to a particular place or know someone or have the money to afford something. So that was the revolution that was brought about by things like the internet. And now what AI is doing, it's democratizing skills. Like now, I don't need to know how to render per se. I don't need to know how to do certain things because the machine can help me learn how to do that. It can code. It's helping me achieve more with less per se. Yeah.
But again, for me now, that kind of a democracy is what takes me out of the market. And I believe that would be a concern for all of architects. If the machine is able to read a client's mind and consolidate that information into a design, I'm out of business. So how can architects work with AI to still do business?
I think a good way to look at it is our work spreads way beyond the kind of designs that we produce. Case in point, it takes about 10 years to be registered as an architect because there's like a specific subset of skills, like even there's so much knowledge condensed within it. And the drafting and production bit of it is kind of the easy part. Yeah. It's kind of the less heavy part of it. I learned that maybe in my 4th year of experience, I could produce drawings, but I couldn't really consider myself an architect till then. So really what AI is helping us to do is focus on the areas where architects should have been focusing on to begin with, like thinking, like it can't interact with your clients. It can't understand your clients with the kind of empathy that is required to bring out a certain design.
Yeah, I think I would say at the end of the day, my little knowledge of what AI is that it's a tool, just like the way the CAD softwares came, and of course all the architects in the market were against, the software in the first place. But then they realized we need this thing.
To impress.
So it's more of architects to grow with the times and to learn how to use the AI. So just as you've said, we need to get to a point whereby we understand this AI so that we can use it as a tool. We can be the ones feeding in the input and churning out our work much faster using the information that is stored within the AI.
And one critical thing people miss out on is understanding how to interact with the machines is also a skill in itself. Like, if we all set out to design using the kind of AIs that we have at the moment, like, there will be a clear difference between the people who understand how to use it and the people who don't know how to use it. And the knowledge to maneuver this machine is kind of a new emerging field. It's called prompt engineering. The machine is kind of like, it's knowledgeable. It's a powerful machine without intuition. It doesn't think. It's too broad to give you what you want. So the knowledge to know how to drive it specifically to the kind of objective that you desire is also a skill in itself. And case in point, you find people who are, you will think designing with AI is fast, but you will be surprised that there are people who are reiterating, like, it gives you an outcome, you reiterate, by the time you get a good outcome, like, it's almost as tasking as not having it in the first place. Yeah.
So maybe you can give us an idea. Now we've talked about AI in general in terms of as a technology.
Yeah.
What are some of the softwares or what types of AI that you would recommend for people who are sitting in this in this place? For example, I know there are students here who are doing their final year exams. Would you advise them to use AI to pass
Making work easier.
making work easier? Or
I think that's an interesting discussion to even think about, because we're at a point where, at least by the time I was in school, computers were there, and our teachers made it a point for us to also learn how to design with our hands, and we saw the value in that with that experience. And now with the onset of AI, like, there's a tendency to think that now we don't need to learn the softwares, or we don't need to learn the drafting or the skills that are necessary for this field. Yeah.
the rendering.
But ideally, I believe AI is more of an enhancement. Like, if you're a good artist without AI only makes you better. It can't make someone who is poor better than someone who is already good.
So no shortcut for the students. There are students who were submitting their thesis through ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So many have come here to look for ChatGPT for their final year project.
But even so, I know this is going to catch up with all institutions.
Yeah.
How do you think then universities should embrace AI, especially in teaching architecture?
I think the first thing that you need to do is to understand it, and no discussion can move forward without a proper education on this. And so maybe instead of discouraging people from using the tool, it will have been better to encourage them and teach them as much as possible about what is going on. Because in the past, if you could maybe only do maybe a project in a semester, but with AI, you can do maybe 10. There's one way to look at it. Like, with increased efficiency, you can do more and you can learn more and faster. So there's that approach where you can increase the load and the rate at which you learn.
And now with regards to regulation, are there any regulations around AI in the country?
Not okay. Regulation even beyond the country, like even worldwide. We're at a situation where the people who are making the machines themselves do not even understand. It's a black box
every day.
Yeah. So what usually happens, they leave the machines, they run certain experiments, and they don't know what will come out of that. So it's kind of hard to know whether regulation is what is needed at the moment, or if it's an ongoing debate on whether the government should intervene or not. But I believe that the government should be aware of what is happening, and people who are practicing and creating these things should make a point to make it open, not working in secret and all this, because of the far-reaching consequences that it has.
I asked that question particularly because your university, your Mamata, has a technology house, and the studios are anything but technology, So I'm just looking at AI, which is predominantly, computer. Look at the space, and not just your alma mater. I think all universities in Kenya have the same experience. You go to ADD, I think the space is primarily designed for 19th century architecture.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah.
Probably.
So how then do you introduce AI in a space that is primarily analog?
I believe one advantage of AI is that you see the machines have already been created, they have been coded. So you don't need powerful machines to run them. That's why I can have AI on my phone. And the machine demands for AI versus traditional computing, like computer-aided design. Computer-aided design required more in terms of technology and facilitating that more than AI. Because I could probably run a design on my phone and do so much more than in the past with less. That's how I would look at that.
So, now I would like for the audience to also ask for some questions, and I hope they've been listening in. And as they start asking their questions, maybe you can give us a brief overview of how long it will take for someone to learn, and I know, for example, myself, my primary interest in AI is rendering. That's my primary interest as a practitioner. So the cost maybe it will take to learn, how long it will take to learn, what kind of AI modules there are. I know there's like a gazillion of them, but which ones do you primarily use, or which ones would you advise these guys who are listening here to go and check out tonight?
Okay. I'll answer that by, first of all, there's different uses for the kind of narrow AI that we have at the moment. You can use it for visualization. You can use it to run quick designs, so kind of like a photo editing tool. You can use it as a presentation tool, like to make quick presentation. You can also use it for just basically also project management. Like we have Asana that has involved AI. So within each category, we can start with the project management side. We have Asana that has introduced its AI. We also have Notion, and so you can use that to mark your calendars, track projects and all that, look at the time you're spending on each project. And that's just that's just one of the ways you can use that. There's also the presentation side of things. Like initially we only had PowerPoint, now we also have Canva. And Canva is really, really helpful. I use it every time. I can make presentations in 1 minute. In fact, you can even make a topic and ask it, make a presentation on the influence of AI in architecture, and it creates a whole outline with images and all that. So there's that. On the photo editing side, we have Photoshop as its own AI. We also have DALL-E. And the interesting thing with DALL-E is that DALL-E 3 specifically, it's linked to ChatGPT, but now what we consider GPT-4. So
you're taking notes, eh? I hope you're taking notes.
It's linked to GPT-4, so you can go directly from prompting. You can ask the machine, I need to create a certain image, but you might not have the knowledge or the skill to do it. So you ask the machine, create an image or create a prompt, or that will create an image that looks like this. So it's more in the world that we are in. We have algorithms that are creating content for the algorithms, and even beyond the image generation side, with tools like Midjourney, DALL-E, Photoshop, Stable Diffusion, all these tools feed into another tool that can collect the images generated and create videos out of that. A tool called Runway. So I mean, and the knowledge gap that is needed. I mean, you can learn AI in 5 minutes. You just need to be shown how to do it once, and it's more like, it's not about the what. There's no subject to be taught. It's more about understanding how it thinks, and once you know that, it's quite easy to manipulate it.
Anyway,
questions from the audience.
Like you could even ask how to monetize. Yes, please.
My question is on when it comes to AI tools, there's obviously a data set that it has been trained on.
Yeah.
So in architecture, how do you go around preventing the tool in cultural appropriation? Because you can see when it comes to using the tools, you can use it to develop maybe an image of a building that you want to build in Kenya, following a certain cultural background, then it brings a cultural setup of maybe South Africa or any other country. So how do you go around navigating that?
I think the best way to address that issue is figuring out the level of investment that you desire. For instance, if all I need is just to be guided on a particular style, maybe I want to create a certain image of a building in Nairobi, I can just create that using the tools that we have at the moment. But you find that since these tools were created externally, like in the US, they don't have enough training data sets about Kenya. You even ask for information about even our capital city and it doesn't know. So there's not enough information on these models about that. But to answer that even, there's also another step with AI called fine-tuning, where especially with GPT-4, they allow you to get to access the code that has been used to create ChatGPT, and then you can also train it yourself. So you can feed it all the data sets that you have, all the buildings that you have, and you can get to train your own AI to respond the way you want it to. And as I mentioned, it's about the level of investment, so that will be more expensive than someone who just wants to use it casually.
Any other question? Yes.
Now, this is quite thought-provoking.
Yeah.
And now I want to introduce a new conversation.
Yeah.
Because I'm seeing myself now becoming a potential investor
Mm-hmm.
in AI.
Yeah.
So primarily my focus would be on, of course, the role of an architect does not finalize on design.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there's the aspect of project management. And now I want to be best on contract administration. So I'm trying to think what is the space of AI in contract administration. Am I seeing a situation whereby I will use AI to run a full contract, have the AI assist me in issuing of interim payment certificates, issuing default notices to the contractor and the likes. So as a future investor, where do I start?
That's now the space of fine-tuning models. So you find one problem with stuff like ChatGPT is that every time you go back to it, it's forgotten what you discussed. So it's not continuous. So you kind of have to start over, especially if you have repetitive tasks, like you're saying, like issuing payment certificates and all that. You couldn't use the kind of AI that we have at the moment. So what people do is draw the source code from GPT-4, and this is openly available. I think it's going for quite affordable. It's about $20 at the moment, but at the moment they've closed entry for people. So, but that is a space that is being done. It's called fine-tuning. You can look it up. And now you get the raw code and you feed it all the information that you need, and you get to create a machine that acts like you. As you said, ChatGPT, the problem with it, it's too general. Like, it doesn't even give you answers like an architect. If you needed ChatGPT to give you answers like an architect, you'd have to either code it to do that, or I've seen them started to introduce custom instructions where you kind of tell it, I'll be giving you questions that look like this, and I need you to respond like this every single time. So the space for that is called fine-tuning. But also, I think understanding how these machines work helps you navigate them in the best way that you can.
You said you want to be an investor. Interesting.
There was another question.
Yes. Yeah.
I'd ask you the question that this year's Honours Paper 2, the last question. Perhaps not providing, but something to the tune, with the professions of which surveying and architecture survive the onslaught of AI. I think we touched on it a bit, of the design parts.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about what it's just saying. And one part is that AI does not take legal responsibility, even as you're drafting contracts. So it's marking what up.
Yeah.
So let's see what's
I think it will be quite risky to just rely on AI, as you said. It's not at a point where it's intelligent enough to do that, but we also need to recognize that it is fast evolving and it can easily get there. In fact, some of the skills we're looking at and considering skills, prompt engineering, will be simply overcome within the next 1 year. And it will simply
Render somebody jobless.
Yeah. I mean, you have to evolve, and beyond just taking away jobs, it's also creating opportunities. So it's interesting to look at people who are creating content. Initially, you had to create content in like a week or so, but now you can, with AI, you can do the work in a day. There's many more spaces that AI is also creating, and I think the riskiest thing is to be rigid and to try to fight the change. Yeah.
Yes, please.
Any other question from this side first?
Oh.
From that side.
Yeah, there's a question here.
Mine was more of a comment than a question.
Yeah.
Just having also tried to dabble with AI.
Yeah.
And also, I find it that it can actually help make architects' job a lot more easier in terms of, for instance, if you're say a briefcase firm, you're the architect, you're the contract manager, you're the doing working drawings and all everything.
And you are the FO.
So I've seen like something in Revit where when you're doing the working drawings, it actually does the dimensioning for you. It does the if you've done your modeling right, to name all your materials for you, it will do all your sheets for you. It will make that part of work that is laborious and sometimes very tedious much easier. And another example is nowadays clients tend to know what they want. Sometimes you find some clients, maybe they'll give you an idea of what they want, and then you kind of flesh it out. So some of these clients can just use some of these prompts to, carve out their ideas, what they want, and then once they have that idea, then you as the architect, you are able to develop it further, because at the moment there are some limitations with AI, but I feel like moving forward, it will actually help architects and different other professions make their work a bit more easier.
Yeah.
And just to even add more information on that, using AI to design, AI doesn't know building codes, because unless that is developed by architects, it can learn. And I think instead of waiting for that to happen, we are actually the best people to teach it that kind of information, because we can't expect coders to understand architecture or to understand building law and develop the kind of software that we need. So I feel like in this context, AI is not the aspect where the client can just use AI to develop a brief, and then you come later and help them fine tune it and follow them through the whole construction process, is more of what we'll be doing with this. Yeah.
This is a follow-up question, based on what you've said.
Yeah.
In a situation where we've taken long as a country to come up with a building code, where do you think the association should plug in, especially now in the age of AI?
So use AI to finalize it. Finalize the building code.
Yeah. Where it takes time for government processes to start and even complete.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting. Maybe we will grab the building code from Britain.
So maybe we take 2 more comments and then we.
Yeah.
Yes, Esli.
Okay. You touched on the regulations around AI, but I'd like to get your opinion on copyright issues.
Yeah.
For example, if you use AI to generate a render, the copyright, who does it belong to? The AI tool, you, or also do you have to inform the clients that you use the AI to generate that?
I think there needs to be a serious review of copyright issues, which is kind of a huge ask, because even us as artists, we borrow ideas from each other, we help each other, we teach each other, and that's the same thing that AI is doing. It's not really coming up with new ideas, it's been fed ideas, some of which belong to people who don't want it to be fed, that kind of information. And so that's a murky area that even the government hasn't addressed yet. But in my opinion, I don't think that's an issue. Like, if someone else is doing work, even if another farm is producing work that looks similar to your farm, I think it's the onus is up to you to get more creative and just.
No, you just say you inspired them. There's another question here, right?
Actually, that is what
Oh, that was the question. That was the question as well? Okay.
What are you most scared about?
Yeah.
About AI and architecture, the construction industry?
That's a hard question because I think I tend to belong on the optimistic side. For me, especially, I didn't like drawing even with hand. So
Check on your maths.
so I felt like the computer was an upgrade, and now that I've gotten some experience working, I also realized that I needed some help beyond what I do, and so I'm seeing some of the things that I considered opportunities, like rendering, slowly disappear by the day, and so I think it's an interesting challenge. I'm more optimistic than scared. I'm looking at what can I do, how can I add value, and an interesting way is that AI is getting good at only the technical aspects of architecture, not the other side, like the soft skills and all that. So that could be a segue into learning these skills as well. Architects should be pushed further away from the technical side to the more.
Yes.
Okay, so my question is, now that AI can make the work be done faster, does that mean cheaper for the client? And number two, now that the client also has access to the same AI, what would stop the client from using the same software to design their house and then only come to you as an architect or engineer or QS when they're going to build, because there will be no need for assistance in the, let's say, design technicalities maybe. And then the third thing, how fast will our legislation here in Kenya, considering our building code, it's a couple decades old, how fast will legislation recognize the work of AI enough to reflect in the scale of fees, reflect in contracts, reflect in the laws as to copyright, for example?
That's a very interesting question.
It's a loaded question.
I'll answer the first part of if the cost, or does it affect does it make the work cheaper? Initially, when maybe they decided to make the architect fee, the workload for architects by then was much more than what it is at the moment. Because maybe you find projects used to take about maybe even 6 months to a year to design only. But nowadays with tech, building BIM and all that, we are doing things faster. How has that affected our charges in the meantime? And how, I think that will be a good example of how we could look at how AI is doing it, like later. Yeah.
Maybe I can try and help. I think if you look at buildings that were done in the past, when the workload, as he rightly puts it, was a lot more in terms of the physical aspects, there was a lot less sophistication in the market when it comes to materials, specifications, and things like that. So the role of the architect definitely needs to evolve with the times. If we limit ourselves to whatever was being done in the 70s and the 60s, we will not grow, even as a profession, from the output. And remember, as globalization takes over, even our design tests and things like that tend to be more and more uniform across the world. So I don't think it will be necessarily cheaper. I think there will be opportunities to design better houses or buildings. Now that we're talking about building optimization using BIM, and I'm sure maybe in the due course of time there will be AI that will help us to optimize our buildings as to performance. So as we move towards performance-based buildings rather than just space-based buildings, I still think for architects, as long as you are in the space to keep adding onto your skills, this is the way I see it, a very positive field to get into and early enough so that you can be able to use it to make your work easier in the tasks which are very laborious, as he puts it, things that we used to do kitambo, and then spend a lot more time on specification and building optimization. It will not affect our fees. Our fees have not been that affected. I think they still used to charge 6% in 1960. To the most part, we still charge 6%. I hope people listening to us still charge 6%. So it's not necessary that we are doing less work. We're just automating the work, and then maybe using the rest of the money to learn and produce better buildings for our clients.
But there was a question
about legislation.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I can also try and assist him. Yeah? Legislation now is outside of the realm of AI. If we could automate our parliament and make it computers sit there instead of those. Maybe the workload will be done faster. But on a light note, I don't want my MP to, and him, he's called Selassie.
I think we've had enough.
Yes.
Just segue into the second session.
Yes. And unless it's a very burning question, Jamila.
Yes.
Very burning.
I don't know if it's very burning, but even as we get into a space where students are getting to learn AI at a very early stage, as professionals in this industry who are already there, do you think it makes for one lazier architects and lazier professions in that they have everything they need? They do not need to go through what you went through. And secondly, do you think it makes them less, for lack of a better word, less knowledgeable and less intelligent?
Wow.
That's a good question. The way I will tend to look at it, it's increasing the competition in the market. Like, if someone can do a lot more with AI, like from my experience as well with using AI, at least for the few projects, developing briefs and all that, it's helped me develop more complex thought processes and more understanding. I can also quickly get answers to questions that I have about design. So it's helping me learn even faster than making me lazier. In that On the other hand, I know it's not sophisticated enough to use for architecture in all the ways you'd want, but in case it gets there, I think there's only good that can come. There's mostly good that will come out of it with more detailed design, performance-based building and all that. Yeah, instead of just designing spaces per se. Yeah.
A follow-up question we're talking about. How far does AI go into architecture? Because I have used AI a number of times, and for what I know, AI in architecture is only being used for visualization, to bring out renders. And I haven't seen an AI where you keep in information and it comes out with floor plans and walls you put where I don't, because AI is basically putting in prompts and then you get results and something comes out. So basically you can say, I want to show me a house, this kind of roof, this kind of walls, this kind of feature. But I haven't seen AI that, I don't know, gives you floor plans for materials. So when you talk about AI going into architecture, have we gotten that far?
Yes, we have. At the moment, yes, we have. So you find that one of the biggest problems with the AIs that we are using, they require text, and that's an aspect of AI. It's a part of AI called natural language processing, where AIs are taught to understand human text, but we've evolved AI like GPT-4. They're incorporating vision. So what vision does is you can just take a picture of a sketch, and it can understand what is on that sketch and work on it, or probably even develop it further. Or you can just, it allows you to work back and forth. You can design on the computer, print it out, sketch it out, go back and forth, because it can read input both in text and in visual.
But from the start, you're the one who has to sketch.
You can also generate a draft and then continue. I mean, there's various ways of using it that will lead to.
I think what I'm understanding, just to close up the session, is that AI also needs to be used in sort of a cocktail of sorts. You use the prompt-based AI to come up with something, and then you feed it now into another AI software, or if I could call it a software, into another AI platform, which then gives you your ultimate thing. So I think the space is there for architects to learn and use these tools to our advantage. I think, just as you said, it's just all about increased competition. Remember, we all graduate as architects, and then you have to differentiate yourself from your classmates when you're dealing with clients. If it's a design competition, whoever can manipulate the AI best will probably win the competition. So I think I'd like us to thank Victor for this session. Just a round of applause. Thank you for coming, and thank you for engaging us. I think our interest has been piqued, and now it's up to us now to follow up. Maybe even have another follow-up session where we'll do actual demonstrations. We'll bring the TV from the boardroom, and then maybe we could discuss 1 or 2 ways to maybe design a 3-bedroom bungalow in 15 minutes, or in 5 minutes. So thank you very much.